with you, Miriam.
No, I'm not ready.
Welcome to Notorious Women Podcast. I'm Lavetta.
I'm Miriam.
And welcome to Notorious Women Season 2, bitches.
Woo, woo. Okay. Welcome.
Miriam, how do you feel about Season 2?
I'm so excited. You know, I was thinking, okay, so it's like Season 1 was like Christmas, okay? And Season 2 is like New Year's, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Right.
So it's like we're turning over a new leaf. Like we're starting.
Wait a minute. If Season 2 is New Year's, so Season 3 is Daylight Savings Time? No, like Valentine's Day better.
Wait, what did you say? I didn't hear.
I said Daylight Savings Time.
Oh, shut up.
Because I'm a jerk.
You're an asshole.
I totally am.
Oh my God.
But I mean, we have Season 2 and we also have a new patron.
Yes,
I don't even know if you know this. You do know this.
I do know this because I texted you.
Thank you to Snow Me. Thank you so much
I can sing
for
that.
Becoming a Tier 2 patron on Patreon. We really, really appreciate it.
Yes.
We are so thankful. We are going to work on even more content for our patrons on Patreon. And if you want to become a patron like Snow Me on Patreon, you can go to patreon.com/notoriouswomen. That's patreon.com/notoriouswomen.
Hey. Thank you.
So I just wanted to give them a shout out. Thank you so much. We really, really appreciate them and all of our patrons on Patreon.
Yes, we do.
So,
New year.
I mean, is it a new year or is it just a new season?
Okay, shush. I'm living my New Year life. Okay.
Honestly, we're about to go into my hot girl summer. Like, remember,
okay. Yes.
I'm working.
We're gonna get Lavetta a man. We got this.
Not just a man. I'm gonna go on vacation. Vacazione. I'm going to
vacation with an
figure
accent.
out a way.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Vacazione. I'm gonna find somebody's boat that I can lay topless on or wear a bikini on, and I'm going to, even though I'm dark skinned, I'm going to get a tan.
Yes,
and I'm not going to have
a
man.
Girl, PSA, don't forget the sunscreen.
Always wear sunscreen,
my friends.
Even when you're a black person. Wear sunscreen.
And
I'm
definitely if you're an Ashkenazi Jew. Okay.
I'm not going to just get one man. I'm going to get all the men this summer because it's going to be a hot girl summer.
Okay. I have to live vicariously through you. I'm happily married. Happily.
I gotta
married.
get my freak on. Which I haven't had in like a long time. Like I don't think I've ever had like a, where I'm gonna go through a hotation as Issa said on Insecure.
Insecure.
I need to get my hotation up.
Listen, it worked for her. I mean, there was some messy bumps on the way.
Mine ain't gonna be that messy.
Okay, no, please don't let it be that messy.
Because see, the secret to a hotation is you can't include exes.
No,
it's got to be all new ones.
Although some of those new ones, girl, your downstairs neighbor was a bad idea. Like, no, because you have to see him every day, and he wasn't even good at what he was doing. But that's totally a side note. But that was where I was like, girl, no. You can go to the next apartment building over and find someone there. It's just, you're going to see him every day.
I agree. It's what's that? Is it an idiom where it's like, don't shit where you eat?
Yeah. I don't know what that word is though, but don't shit where you eat.
It's true. Like, because it's complicated. Complicado. Thank you, high school Spanish.
Yeah, it's working. It's working.
On that note, I guess we should get started.
Yes.
I believe I am first, and I have a wonderful one to kick off our season 2.
Oh, I'm so excited.
A wonderful, notorious woman
Let's do it.
And it's also a nod to what's going on today with our former president.
I'm sorry. I don't know what just happened, but I started laughing. Can't stop. Okay.
I just cackled. I cackled when the news broke of that.
So exciting. Okay, go on.
We'll see if anything comes of it, but I can still cackle. So my notorious woman for this wonderful new episode of season 2 is Monica Lewinsky, bitches.
Woo! Oh my God. I love her. And we need to bring her back and apologize. Okay.
Oh, I'm going to get to that. So let's get into Miss Monica Lewinsky. So Monica Lewinsky was born Monica Samil Lewinsky on July 23rd, 1973 in San Francisco, California.
Okay.
To Bernard Lewinsky, an oncologist, and Marcia K. Valinsky, an author.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay.
So now, though she was born in San Francisco, she grew up mainly in Brentwood and Beverly Hills. So money, bitches. Yes.
Yes.
Monica comes from money.
Not just money, money, like
money.
She's rich, not, yeah.
Now, though she came from a well-off family and her family provided for her generously, her childhood was difficult.
Oh, okay.
About her childhood, she told Barbara Walters in an interview in 1999 that her weight problems made her feel isolated and alone. Quote, I was very sensitive, so I couldn't take a joke, Lewinsky recalls. I remember sitting on my parents' bed and them practicing with me how to take a joke, how not to cry.
Oh, God. She has my heart with that. I just growing up in the 80s and 90s was really terrible. Like diet culture was like on fire. Like,
yeah, I feel like, because diet culture has probably been a thing since like for women forever. But I think particularly in the 80s because of the onslaught of like aerobics culture. Like,
yes. And that the idea that you can do something, you can quote unquote, like fix it, which is like lie because our bodies, by the way, I have a lot of opinions about this because I work in the fitness industry. So I can tell you all, your body is your body. The way you're shaped, the way you're designed is mostly designed by genetics. You can build muscle. Sure. And you should. You absolutely should. I'm in the fitness business for a reason. But like, you don't need to be skinny to be healthy. In fact, many people who are skinny are not healthy. It's nothing to do with one or the other. So,
and also like as a kid, kids shouldn't be thinking about their bodies. But if you're raised in a family, like let's say your mother has a weird relationship to dieting, right? Mm-hmm. You can internalize a lot of stuff, especially if you're chunky. But how many chunky kids turn out to be like swans? Like that's what I'm saying.
Can I tell you something that because again, like I deep dive in this. This is because I see the reality of it. I see what diet, what fitness, what it does, and I see the harm in diet culture. Like, and it's very harmful. And one of the things that I think makes it worse is the idea that it defines if you are a good person or not. Yeah. Like, and it absolutely needs to stop. That needs to stop. And this is like a fine example of a child who's traumatized, has everything in the world, but it was traumatized by this culture. Okay. And
also living in Beverly Hills and Brentwood in the 80s. Like, so, she had reportedly she had a difficult relationship with her father, but she was very close to her mother.
Okay.
And then later when her parents divorced, they had a very acrimonious separation and divorced in the late 80s. And that had a significant effect on her too, as well. Later, both of her parents later remarried. Her mother married R. Peter Strauss, a media executive and former director of The Voice of America under President Jimmy Carter.
Oh, okay.
So again, Monica comes from a well-off family. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now growing up while growing up, she attended Sinai Temple in Los Angeles and attended Sinai Akiba Academy. It's religious school. So she was a nice Jewish girl.
I know this. I think I went to a Jewish school nearby. Yes. Temple Emmanuel, if y'all know these things.
Yeah. So she's a nice
6. Okay.
She's a nice Jewish girl. Okay. Now, when she graduated high school in 1991, she didn't go off to a 4-year college or university like, other kids in her circle, which I think is that is unusual for someone from such a well-off, connected family. Maybe it's owing to like not being able to fit in and not, and just sort of struggling socially. It could be that. Who knows? But she attended Santa Monica College, a 2-year community college.
Okay.
And worked for the drama department at Beverly Hills High School and at a tie shop. So this is her first 2 years of college.
Interesting. For someone who probably didn't need a job to choose to have a job. Yeah.
But here's the thing. This is maybe why she stayed in the area too. Who knows? In 1992, a year after graduating, she allegedly began a 5-year affair with Andy Blyler, her married former high school drama instructor.
Oh, girl. Okay.
No, girl. No.
That's a bad idea, girl.
Yeah.
All right.
She told Barbara Walters, quote, Andy made me feel sexy and get connected to my sensuality.
Okay.
End quote. Yeah. Now, in 1993, in an effort to end the affair, she enrolled at Lewis and Clark College in Portland, Oregon.
Okay.
So to get away, to get out of town.
Wait, was it a 5-year affair, you said?
Yeah, this is what it says. So I have a feeling it was on and off because, mean, he's also married. Yeah. And she went on to graduate with a BA in psychology from the college in 1995. Okay. So she stayed on track, probably owing to her nice Jewish parents' pressure. Like, you got to get your degree.
Yep. I know exactly what happened. Yep.
Yeah. Now, with assistance of a family connections, because again, she is connected, she got an unpaid summer White House internship in the office of White House Chief of Staff Leon Panetta.
Okay. And
moved to D.C. in July of 1995. Now, in December of 1995, she moved to a paid position in the White House of Legislative Affairs, where she met President Bill Clinton.
Yes, she did.
It was at this time that Monica, now 22 at this time, started having an affair with President Bill Clinton, who was 49 at the time.
Oh, my God.
Yes.
All right.
Now, I'm wondering, this makes a lot more sense now, because she had already had an affair with a married former teacher.
Right.
So that's because when I was her age, I would have been horrified by the idea of having anything with any kind of married man. Like,
I would have been like, gross. I would have said things
even
like,
if I thought
gross.
he was sexy, because again, I know a lot of times people make, like, ew, but I mean, have you seen Bill? Do you remember what Bill Clinton was like then? Like,
I do.
Bill Clinton is still, he's an old man now, but Bill is very charming. Appealing. He's very charming. He has a lot of charisma, and he's very tall, and he's not a bad looking guy. I know, but he too struggled with weight when he was younger.
I did not know that. I mean, I would have been like, ew, gross, but let me explain. I had a lot of fear when I was that age. Like, I had a lot of like, oh God, what would he want me to do? Like, that's where I was coming from. I was a very like, I protected myself. So anyone, like, I remember I was 17 when I started college. I turned 18 right away, but I was still a month 17. And this guy hit on me. And to this day, I mean, I'm very happily married. But I thought, oh my God, what is he doing? He was 24 years old. And I was like,
so old.
And he was like, he wasn't even bad. He was like, you're cute. You know, it was like, and I was like, ew. But that's where and he was cute and smart. I had it was very much a me problem.
I mean, I will say 24 and 17 is not bad, but because that's like grad student.
Yeah, he was a grad student.
That's like grad student, and you're like a freshman in college. So I'd be like,
and I still was very much. That's why, like, when my kids talk about being teenagers, I'm like, just so you know, you're still a child. Now I know you're not. I said you're not going to feel like a child. Like in retrospect, the reason I reacted was because I was still kind of a child, you know.
Well, Monica was not a child, at 22, but I mean, she still was, because I mean, there's a big age difference, but I think these are two adults. But for me, it's not even the age thing. It's obviously this is your boss, but also he's a married man. Like,
he's also the president of the United States.
Yeah, he a grown ass man. It's not like he's 25 or 28, which you think is like a huge age difference when you're 22.
You do.
He's 49, but he's also a married man. But again,
I have a theory that it has something, I think, in her head, and I'm making shit up. We could ask her. She's still around. That because she had so much issue with her weight and her appearance and her sense of worth, that these older men gave her that in a way, it gave her that sense of worth in a way that she did not believe she could get from up here.
I think you're on to something, because she also told Barbara Walters in the interview that about the first time she saw Bill Clinton. She said, quote, "My breath was taken away. He stepped onto the platform, and it was this man who was full of energy and sensuality and attractiveness. And from that moment on, the few occasions when I saw him, there was intense eye contact." End quote.
I mean,
so also, when, older people can see the charm of younger people. It's not just the youth, but they can see you in a light that you can't see when you're that age.
Yeah.
Especially if you have low self-esteem. And then, father issues. I mean, who doesn't have father issues these days, but, both men and women, but
yeah, for sure.
But I think you're onto something there when you talk about that. I think she would just say, "Oh, I was just attracted to them," but it's also men, grown ass men, know how to give women attention.
Yep.
Whereas guys your own age don't usually, they're still trying to figure it out. They're like,
they just don't know. Yeah. And I've seen her. She was wrong. She was a beautiful woman.
Yeah. She can see it now, I'm sure, but she couldn't see it then.
You can always see it in rush. I see pictures of myself and I'm like, my God, I was gorgeous. What was my problem?
Yeah. Now, as far as so this is what she told Barbara Walters about the first time she saw him. So soon after, the two started flirting. Okay. And then Lewinsky one day blurted out, quote, "I have a crush on you," to Clinton.
Okay.
And Clinton reportedly replied, quote, "Well, do you want to come into the back office?" And that's another thing, because grown as people, and it's so funny because younger men, that's what they like about older women, because grown ass people tell you what they want. Like, they're like, there's no pussyfooting around. That's like, they know how to flirt, but they're like, yeah, let's go back to the back office and get to know each other a little bit more.
Jesus. But can
now,
we,
all of this, all of this sounds exciting, except the fact that he's a married man and he's your boss.
And he's your boss, but also, like, he knows better. He could have been like, "That's sweet, but I'm married." And we didn't really like.
But the same way that we're saying that older people can see the charm in younger people can see the charm in older people that they don't feel as well. And that's why these Clinton, listen, let me be clear. If Bill Clinton was my husband, he probably would disappear they probably would be like, oh, not disappear. They'd be like, oh,
shit.
The president had a heart attack in his sleep a week after this came out. They're like, oh, maybe the stress got to him. No, I put something in his drink because that motherfucker gotta die embarrassing me like this. Okay.
Right? It's embarrassing, right? Oh my God.
I would have strangled him with my bare fucking hands. Like, you couldn't keep your dick in your pants from the intern, motherfucker? Really? This is what we do?
Listen, this feels like the song Burn from Hamilton because everything is from Hamilton in my heart. And that's exactly, like, I feel you because of Burn. I can't sing the song, so that is the only attempt.
I burn everything down. But to your point, both of them are to blame because he's a married man. He should have been like, oh, well, that's sweet. Well, and then like made sure she didn't come near him because he knew he can't trust himself to be alone with her instead of being like, well, come to my back office. Okay, that's a terrible Clinton. It's a terrible Clinton.
It's not so bad, actually.
Everything is foghorn leghorn. I'm just saying. So the two started having an affair.
Okay.
They spent, in fact, and they were not like secret about it. So the affair, they spent so much time together in the West Wing that the deputy chief of staff had her transferred to the Pentagon in April of 96.
Wow.
Because that's how obvious it was, right?
Yeah.
So, and Clinton's got other issues, which I'm going to get to right now. So,
okay.
But despite the transfer, they didn't stop seeing each other. She didn't stop wanting or trying to see him, I should say. So in October of 1996, the notorious footage of her waiting in a crowd of admirers at the Democratic fundraiser. So this is if you go and look up Monica Lewinsky, they'll show this clip over and over and over again. So this is after the affair has gone on for a while and she's been transferred by her immediate boss. It's like, oh, no, we can't have this.
I mean, her immediate boss tried to save the situation.
As you should. And so she's waiting and he sees her and she hugs him. She's looking up at him like just with admiration. Now, after she had transferred to the Pentagon, she befriended So Monica is a very, and I think she probably would agree with this today. She was a very naive and very young and immature 22-year-old, 23-year-old. She was a very, just like even making the choice to have an affair with your boss, bad idea. Yeah. Making the choice to have an affair with a married boss, bad idea. Making a choice to be so like uncouth while having said affair go on in the fucking White House, right?
Mm-hmm. And so the affair you're having is with once again the president of the United States.
Yeah, and her immediate boss, is trying to save the situation. But she's like, no, I still want to see him. So she strikes me as just a very immature for her age in a lot of ways.
Well, I mean, do you remember that feeling? Do you remember being that age and having a crush on someone?
Yes,
it's
but
so
I would not.
Powerful.
I wouldn't have this kind of crush on a married ass man.
I would never have done anything about it. Again, I was scared of a 24-year-old when I was 17. But
yeah.
I do understand that I can't not
if this
be near
was
him.
Even with the age difference, if he were not her boss, the president of the United States, and married, we would be like, the age difference is, but I can understand it's a romance. It's basically a Harlequin romance.
It is so totally a Harlequin romance.
If he were single.
If he were not married, which he should not be if he is going to fuck her. I'll say it.
Yeah. Even if he is a president, if he were single or widowed, this would be a Harlequin romance. Right?
Totally. Like I'd read
So
this
I understand her feeling. And also she's a very and when I say immature is that, she would get caught up in that feeling. Yes. It's almost like she's still 17. She's still 16. She's still 15 and not realizing that she's a grown woman and these actions have consequences, right? Because it's like, obviously she didn't think this through, which a lot of people who have affairs don't think through, right?
Yeah, that's a fair point.
So
did you see what I did there?
I see, yeah.
You're
now,
welcome.
keep in mind, she seems pretty like immature, not really thinking this through, but she's caught up in the emotions and the feelings and the lust and all this other stuff, right? So she's over at the Pentagon and she's still trying to call him, and she's probably frustrated. She can't get a hold of him like she used to. She can't get access to him. So she starts talking to her new coworker and new best bud, Linda Tripp, who was also a lot older than her. Okay. Now, at this time, Clinton apparently had a lot of problems of keeping his thing in his pants, because Clinton, when he was governor of Arkansas, was accused of sexually harassing several women, but including state employee Paula Jones, or allegedly, I should say. I don't know if it's several women or if it's a few. But anyway, but Paula Jones was one of these women.
Right.
And just for context for our listeners, Clinton was a Democratic Democrat president.
Yes.
He was also called Slick Willie because he's a charmer. He's a charmer. I happen to like Clinton as president. I liked him because he was cutthroat, and he often would tell the Republicans to suck it. And he would get his way often. Yeah. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that part of it. But also, as such, the Republicans hated Bill Clinton. They hated that he was so charismatic because, before Clinton, the only other Democratic president that they could pile on top of was Jimmy Carter, who a lot of people say had a terrible presidency, but Jimmy Carter's turned out to be a wonderful human being, period.
Yes.
And so Bill Clinton comes along and he has all the swagger. And again, he's very charming. He's tall. He's handsome. He's very, very smart. He was a Rhodes Scholar. He also had a great ability of explaining very complicated things in a very simple way.
Yes.
So he's very popular, but he also couldn't keep his apparently his thing in his pants.
He just needed the zipper kept up. Like you need a needle and thread maybe, and sew that zipper, and have to pee himself. But I'm good with that.
So he was vulnerable, and the Republicans went after him in a way, in the very vulnerable spot that he had. And this was his interactions with women that work for him in his vicinity, right? So all of this is swirling around. So they're just looking at ways to get at him, right? And then, so the Paula Jones case was well known. The people were pursuing that. Yeah. So when Lewinsky starts talking to Linda Tripp, Linda Tripp, being older, realized the juicy, because at first she probably thought, oh, this girl's just going on and on and on about some guy. She probably was like, oh, Bill, oh my guy, da, da, da. And then when she realized she was talking about Bill Clinton, the president, then Linda Tripp started recording Monica Lewinsky without her knowledge.
I didn't,
on behalf first. On her own, and then on behalf of the FBI in the fall of 1997.
So, okay. Obviously, he should keep in his pants. I get it. But, do we crumble a presidency because he took his dick out? And, and she wanted it. Let me rephrase. This was
rephrase that.
Let me rephrase that. This was not unsolicited with Monica.
And it was, and I mean, listen, I'm not going to defend either Monica Lewinsky or Bill Clinton, actions in this case. But in light of what we know today of what's going on with the Republicans, all the excuses they're making for their guy, okay. So before I go through, I'm going to go through
this is Sesame Street compared to what's happening now.
Just so you guys know, the reason why we're saying this is because in the end, so let me just go through. So Linda started recording Monica. Monica thinks she's just talking to a friend. Right. So she she was used. And again, this is her naivete. She's like very, very young, very immature for her age in a lot of ways, because she should have kept this to herself, really, or told her own girlfriends that she had known for years. But maybe she didn't have a lot of friends. But I also think she probably was lonely being in Washington, away from her family. She was very close to their family. But anyway, Linda took advantage of her. So did Bill Clinton. So did Linda Tripp. She took advantage of her. So now when Paula Jones's attorney found out about the recordings, all bets were off. Okay. Yep. So on January 7th, 1998, Lewinsky files an affidavit in the Jones case in which she denies ever having a sexual relationship with President Clinton. So Linda's phone conversations go out. Paula Jones' attorney finds out. Of course, they contact Monica Lewinsky because they want her to testify on their behalf to show like a pattern of behavior, right?
Right.
So Monica's like, I thought I was just talking to my girlfriend. And then she realized that she had been duped, basically. So
that sucks.
January 7th, she's trying to cover, and her parents, obviously they're well connected. So they immediately got her legal representation to try and cover her, because they realize she's thinking this is just a personal relationship, but they're using her personal relationship for political means, right? Yep. So she lawyers up as well. So she files this affidavit in January of 1998. January 7th. January 9th, Linda Tripp delivers the tapes to her lawyer, Jim Moody. January 12th, Linda Tripp contacts the Office of Whitewater Independent Counsel Ken Starr to talk about the tapes that the conversation she had with Lewinsky. She tells Ken Starr that that in these conversations, Monica Lewinsky is detailing an affair with Clinton, and also implicating Clinton's friend Vernon Jordan, who told Lewinsky apparently to lie about the alleged affair under oath.
Oh, shit.
So all this stuff's going around. January 13th of that year, Tripp, wired by the FBI agents with Starr, meets with Monica Lewinsky in the Ritz-Carlton Hotel Bar in Pentagon City, Virginia, and records their conversation.
Oh, my God.
She's still trying. Yeah.
This bitch, thou say
January 14th.
Okay.
January 14th, Lewinsky gives Tripp a document headed Points to Make in an Affidavit, coaching Tripp. So then Monica, probably on the advice, allegedly, of her lawyers, is trying to, because she doesn't realize that it's all come from Linda. She still thinks that Linda's her
really? Friend. Oh, my God.
She doesn't realize this at this moment.
There's
January
like a
16th,
girl code that Linda is like hardcore breaking. Hardcore.
And again, Linda's a lot older than
girl code is girl code. I don't care. No,
I get it. Okay. I get it. But like, yeah. So January 16th, Ken Starr contacts Attorney General Janet Reno to get permission to expand his probe. Now, this probe, again, is to find out about the president's personal sexual relationships, right?
Yeah.
So that in January 1998, news of the sexual relationship broke in the press.
Yep.
So Monica Lewinsky instantly becomes notorious. She has to spend weeks in hiding from public attention. She goes to her mother's residence at the Watergate complex. They dig into her past and find out the affair with the former teacher. All this stuff, that tape of her hugging, waiting for Clinton, all that comes up, all of this stuff. Now, in August of 1998, Monica Lewinsky appears before the grand jury and takes a stand where she details her sexual encounters. So she's gotten her lawyers have been like, you got to come clean because they're going to try and they want him. And if they have to knock you over to get to him, that's what they're going to do.
Yeah, for sure.
So she details their sexual encounters with the president on over 9 occasions, beginning in November of 95 through March of 97. And she did say that the First Lady Hillary Clinton was at the White House for a portion of these times.
Oh.
Now, Clinton, on the other hand, said that there was no sexual relations with that woman. No, I'm just kidding. So he said that there was no sexual relationship.
I remember that.
Or improper sexual relationship, which he defended as. So then he starts doing some pep talk. Like, they were like, but then later on you lied and said there was no sexual relation. He was like, well, at the time you asked me the question, there was no sexual relationship. It's like, again, Slick Willie. That's what they call it at the time. That's what they call the boy, Slick Willie.
Yeah.
Now, ultimately, you guys can read about all of the ins and outs. Ultimately, this probe, headed by Ken Starr, spent over 50 million American dollars going after Clinton and basically using the fact that he lied about the affair to impeach him. It's not that he had the affair.
Nope.
It's that he lied about it. So it's not that you pay off a porn star. No. It's that it's the money. It's the money you use. How you got the money? Did it come from campaign things? Right. Allegedly. This is not the crime. It's the lying about it. It's the cover up, right? That's the old saying in politics. It's not the crime. It's the cover up of the crime. Watergate. It's not just that it was Watergate. It's the covering up of the Watergate crime.
Although that was also a crime, but yes.
It was a crime too.
Yeah.
So all of this led $50 million later, led to Bill Clinton being impeached on December 19th, 1998. Okay. Yeah. Now, so that is one of the reasons that Monica Lewinsky is notorious. That's the main reason she's notorious. Now, since then, and just keep in mind, this is a 22-year-old woman who thinks she's having an inappropriate affair with a married older man. But complicates it by it's a president who's embroiled in political people who are out to get him. So it turns into a whole other thing. And she, unfairly so, and I think because the 90s were so fucked up, we as a society realized that we failed Monica Lewinsky in a lot of ways, including, women, including women who would consider themselves, feminist. We failed her because we didn't realize, to your point earlier, she's a 22-year-old making terrible decisions, which a lot of 22-year-olds make. But she got the brunt of the demonization. She got like the whole blue dress affair where she told Linda Tripp in one of these conversations about, Clinton's semen ended up on her dress, a blue dress. And that
next
was,
thing you know, it's like the cover of like the Daily News is that fucking blue dress with like a circle around. Come on. That was like, you bought that at the Gap. Leave her alone. Like, Jesus.
Yeah. And just the thing, like, again, like we as a society, we put the blame, I feel like, too much on her shoulders and not on his. His blame came from like his political enemies, right? Right. But it's like, no, motherfucker, like you were a married man. Of the two, you should have been like, oh, it's flattering that this young woman is, has a crush on me, but let me like avoid this situation. Let me avoid being alone with her, even though I like the attention and da-da-da. Like you have a lot more to lose than this young woman, but she ended up losing basically. So just so you know, when this broke, she did the Barbara Walters special, and it is really weird. And that's what I mean about saying how like she's very immature in a lot of ways. Because in this interview, she's gushing about like how sexy he is and like how I don't think it really fully hit her like the truth of her circumstances when she did this interview.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And I think that while the Republicans loved to bash Clinton for it, the Democrats were like, yes, but calm down. It's, it doesn't define his policies and what he's doing as a president. Right. But everybody shit on her. Like it was like equal opportunity. And she was still kind of young and kind of unaware of the greater impact this had on the world.
Yeah. Even though this interview was after she did this interview on March 3rd, 1999, even in the interview, it's still, and the interview, by the way, was watched by over 70 million Americans. Yeah. The interview with Barbara Walters on ABC. Now, she was paid $500,000 for her participation in a book. And and another 1 million for international rights to the Barbara Walters interview. But she had a lot of legal bills, and she could no longer work. Right.
Yeah.
So
that was her job.
She other 23-year-olds, 24-year-olds who are starting, careers somewhere. She can't really do that because, again, she's framed as and she was. Now, don't get me wrong. She was wrong. She shouldn't have been pursuing a married man. She shouldn't have been doing this. And she was a grown up, but she got more of the blame for this than she should have gotten.
Thing is no, it was a bad idea and she shouldn't have done it. Absolutely. But do we have to vilify her as evil? Which is what happened. And you're looking around at look, listen, okay. So 1999, that was the year I studied abroad and I traveled. And at one point found myself in Italy at the bottom of a volcano on a beach with a friend. And this boy comes up and it's Italy in the 90s. And he's like, hey, ciao Bella. And I was like, hi, because I was young and dumb too. And he says to me, what's going on with your president? And I was like, I know very little. And he said, our president, he has all these girls. We're like, hooray. Your president, he stops being a president. And I was like, America is weird. It was
well, I mean, it's because the Republicans were like, oh, the Democrats are morally bankrupt.
Yeah, that's where they were
trying.
And this proves it,
right?
Yeah.
This proves it. And again, remember today? Remember what we're going through right now. So I'm almost finished here. So she struggled, even though at first I think a part of her was like, oh, I'm a celebrity now. Let me see if I can, make money off of this. If this is a good thing. I think she tried her best.
She didn't have a way to have a job. So I kind of see where she was coming from.
I also think she just tried her best to kind of like what Stormy Daniels is doing today. And because we are this many decades past that. And so because of Clinton and Monica Lewinsky scandal, I think that's why Stormy Daniels she has different options now. And also Stormy Daniels is an actual professional. She's a professional porn star. Oh, she was at the time. But so we're in a different place as a society. So I think Monica did the best she could. Again, she had a lot of legal fees. She had living expenses. And, she, at the start of 2000, she was hired by Jenny Craig to be a spokesperson. But it did not go well because the moral backlash against her was so strong that the company stopped running the ads, and some of the local some of the local franchise owners just wouldn't run the ad, period. So they eventually stopped running the ad. It started in February 2000 and they stopped running it in April and only paid her $300,000 of the $1 million that they had promised her.
Oof. I mean, so $300,000 is not bad though.
Yeah, but taxes it ain't a million. True. It's a third of what they promised you. So she moved back to New York. She also started a handbag line for a while. And then after around 2002, she realized she could no longer stay in the United States. It was just untenable for her. So she moved to the UK and she worked briefly for Channel 5. She also hosted a couple reality shows in the early 2000s. But eventually she got her stride. She got a little bit older and got maybe a little bit more frame of reference. She ended up getting her Master of Science degree from the London School of Economics in 2014.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic. Good for her.
Now, that same year, she wrote an essay for Vanity Fair magazine called Shame and Survival, where she discussed her life in the scandal. So again, we have we have a frame of reference. Yeah. We're 20 plus years on. So, or almost 20 years on. And so she has some clarity and a frame of reference to think about that. How all that played out, her role in it, but also understanding that it was an imbalance of power, which on the outside excuse me, when you're older, that's probably what older people are trying to tell her. That's why you say, no, girl, this is a bad idea, girl. But again, the public was so nasty to her. She so much so that she became a huge proponent, and still today, of cyberbullying. She took a stance beginning in October of 2014, and speaking at a Forbes magazine 30 Under 30 summit about her experience in the aftermath of the scandal. And she said, quote, having survived myself, what I want to do now is help other victims of the shame game survive too, end quote.
Good for her. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love that.
And then in the kickoff of the Me Too movement in Hollywood, that is, because it was already started by Tarana Burke. She's the one that coined the term Me Too. In 2017, Lewinsky she tweeted and she kind of stepped her toe into saying, basically, she said Me Too at first, and people were like, like, no, girl, you did this like volunteer. It ain't the same thing. And then later on, she kind of qualified and said that, her experience is certainly not a Me Too movement in the purest form that other women are going through. But she's still trying to make sense of like the power imbalance. He was her boss. He was the president of the United States. He was 27 years older than her.
I mean, the power imbalance is mass. I mean, I cannot think of a greater power imbalance than a president of this country and a young intern. Like, you know what I mean?
But I get her what she's saying, but I also want her to, and I think she later acknowledged that, there's nuance in this, that it would be more of a Me Too if he was pursuing her and she was trying to spurn him, but she was actively pursuing him. Yeah. Like, even when her boss was like, she was like trying to get in touch with him, trying to find him, showed up at this thing. And so, but there is a power, imbalance, and there's no denying that. And again, we as a society failed Monica Lewinsky in the 90s. Yes. And I think I want to make that clear. Today, however, she's active on Twitter, which I follow her, and she is hilarious. Really? And I will say, I love that she finally has found her groove. It seems like I think she probably it wasn't quite Me Too, it was a power imbalance, but to also own up to her own part in it. But I also think that we as a society owe her an apology by the way we treated her and bullied her. And people talked about her weight, her looks, all this stuff. And Clinton didn't get really any of that. Clinton got his comeuppance from his political rivals. Again, $50 million to impeach a man who lied about having an affair with an intern. Like, about I thought selling
they were
secrets.
Worried about money. Why are we spending money when we don't have to be?
And also, he is not taking classified documents and kissing the boot in the ring of Russia. But this is here or there.
Yeah.
But I digress. But I just want to say, like, Monica Lewinsky, I really admire her for having survived all of this, because I think now in the modern world, we can really appreciate the stuff she had to go through. And she had to go through it in a way without like Twitter, without being able to tell her side of the story. Like,
we could never see her side of the story in a way. If this was happening now, you would 100%, she would have had a following. She would have had support, because she would have been able to we would have been able to at least have empathy for her, because we'd be able to see her side, as opposed to her standing there crying and, her damn blue dress with a circle on it on the cover of every newspaper,
And I will end by saying that she has since written about this whole experience and, the conflation with Me Too. She even admits that it's not quite the same thing, but she has written since then, now in her 40s, that, she has a more healthy relationship to it. But quote, she said, but as for me, my history and how I fit in personally, i.e. the Me Too movement, I'm sorry to say I don't have a definitive answer yet on the meaning of all the events that led to the 1998 investigation. I am unpacking and reprocessing what happened to me over and over and over again, end quote. So I think that, and this was a couple years ago that she wrote this. This is before the pandemic. And so I think since then, if you follow her on Twitter, I highly recommend you go and follow Monica Lewinsky on Twitter, because also I think she's embraced like how she's been in rap songs. She's like a cultural reference. And also, can I just say, a stunner?
Yeah,
like,
she's hot.
A stunner. Like, but I think she has now a healthy relationship to her notorious past and like what it all means. But I also think that we as a public have been like, yeah, we did Monica wrong. Like like she was young and she was dumb. Plain and simple.
Like if you're going to forgive your friends who do stupid shit when they're 22, why can't you do the same thing for her? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and she was a pawn.
She doesn't have to be right in order for us to be nice to her. And
give her grace.
And give her grace. Which is all we want for ourselves, and our friends and our family, right?
Yeah. So that is Monica Lewinsky.
Awesome.
My Notorious woman for season 2.
That is a great way to start us off. I have a very different journey to go on. This is okay. So I learned about this woman, and I'll just start with her name, which is ANA MENDIETA. Now, she's Cuban, so I'm obviously pronouncing it a little bit wrong, but that's, Anna. We'll go with Anna.
Okay.
Could be Anna.
It's probably Anna.
It's probably Anna, huh? Should I go with Anna? I don't know.
Anna.
I'm gonna go with Anna.
I mean, we're American, so we're like Anna.
Anna. It's not. I'm not saying Anna. I'll open my mouth a little more. Okay, I'm gonna go with Anna. You've convinced me, Anna. Have you ever heard of her, ANA MENDIETA?
No.
So as soon as I started researching her, a friend of mine posted some of her work on like Instagram, and I was like, "Oh, am I the last to know about her?" Oh, okay. But I guess you and I are together the last to know.
Yeah, tell me.
ANA MENDIETA. She was born in 1948 in Havana, Cuba. As a child, she was sheltered, upper class. She attended an all-girls Catholic private school. At 12 years old, so Havana, Cuba, 12 years old, 1960, she was sent to America along with her sister, Rocklyn, who was 15. So she was 12, her sister's 15, as part of the Peter Pan operation, which was, have you heard of this?
No.
So I guess between 1960 and 1962, America sponsored a project for Cuban children to flee Fidel Castro's dictatorship. Now, it conveyed over 14,000 minors to the United States within those 2 years. And
by themselves?
I mean, yes. I don't.
I've never heard of this.
They operated so that they didn't want it to be seen as an anti-Castro political undertaking, but like it was, because that's why they were doing it.
Right.
I mean, it kind of reminds me of like in World War II when they took the kids from London and took them to the countryside. But that was like London to the country, like a train will take you there and back, This is a boat. So they were by themselves. They spent some time as refugees in Florida before being sent to Iowa. There they lived in foster homes, and it says here they were enrolled in reform school because
I don't like the sound of this.
Wikipedia says that the court wanted to avoid sending them to a state school. I think there's so much politics in this, but like you took the child.
I'm so confused.
I'm too. I don't know. Like I tried to find more and
they took
are there
the kids.
14,000 kids in reform schools in the United States that they took from Cuba? Like, is that what happened?
Yeah, so I'm sure they sold it to the parents like, oh, this is new opportunities for the kids. But then they put them in reform schools in Iowa?
Right.
I'm so confused. Okay.
Very, very confusing.
Wow.
So, and they didn't really know a lot of English.
Of course not.
They're right. Why would they? I mean, don't send me to Cuba. I don't know Spanish. Like that's what would happen. Right.
Yeah.
Their parents were able to get a power of attorney to keep them together. I don't know how, but like other siblings were separated. Wow, America's got history. So both of the girls were very interested in art, and this helped them deal with their new harsh school system and probably the PTSD from being separated from their parents. So we'll get to that in a minute. And then in 1966, they were reunited with their mother and younger brother. So she was 12 in 1960. So not till 12 plus 6 is 18. Math is power. They didn't see their mother again till then.
Oh my God. That's like, wow.
Bad, maybe.
That's a lot for a young person to take. Like, basically tween to all through your teenage years, you're separated in a foreign country.
Now, her father was a political prisoner. And so he'd been in a prison for almost 2 decades, and he was able to move out in 1979. But okay. I'm wondering if maybe she and her sister would have been better off suddenly becoming poor in Cuba than getting displaced.
I don't understand why they didn't take the children, because I'm assuming they're doing it under the guise of like helping the children. Why didn't they just go to like families? Like, why didn't families just take
Because
the
then it would have been
in?
obvious, because the family, like the wife of the political prisoner is going to America.
No. I mean, like, why, when they came to America, why didn't they place the kids with like actual families versus a reform school?
I don't know.
Because a reform school is where you send kids who are behaving badly. Usually.
Yeah, it's like juvenile hall or reform school, or that's where those conversations lie. Okay, and then it makes you wonder, were they trying to help funding reform schools? I don't know.
Oh.
I don't trust anybody to do anything right these days. So it just, I don't understand it. I don't
so
understand
weird.
it.
So she's 18. She's reunited with her
because if
mother.
You're like, oh, we didn't want to do a state school because then it would be like, money, for public education. Catholic school wouldn't.
Yeah, I'm just so
we
confused.
have options. We could have done a Catholic school. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So she graduated from high school and she went to the University of Iowa to study French and art. And she was very, very interested in art. And she became this great artist. I'll just share that.
Oh, that's good. Okay.
So mostly she did paintings at first. That was her early work. But then she enrolled in Hans Breeder's Innovative and Progressive Intermedia Art course. Intermedia, not intermediate, which I thought was the word. No, intermedia. Yeah, I get it now. I don't know like a ton about like this kind of art, so bear with me.
Me either. So
okay, like there's a whole thing. And that's why people study it and go to school and like learn things.
Right.
So, she says the turning point in art was in 1972 when I realized that my paintings were not real enough for what I want the image to convey. And by real, I mean I wanted my images to have power, to be magic. So her professor turned her on to the newly burgeoning performance art scene and groups such as the Viennese Actionists. I don't know who they are. Look them up. Sounds interesting. Okay. But what I do know is that she began to experiment using her own body and blood as a medium. And she incorporated aspects of live ritual from religions like Santeria into her work.
Oh, this took a turn.
Oh, it did.
Okay.
Yes, it did.
Oh, okay.
Uh-huh. And Santeria, from what I read, is like a Catholic sect that is, I don't know if it's all of Latin America, but it's in Cuba for sure, and it's a little more mystical.
Yeah, I think it's I could be wrong, but my understanding is that Santeria is like a combination of like hoodoo, not voodoo, but hoodoo practices, which are ancient African practices, spiritual practices that was brought over with slaves to South and Central America and mixed with Catholic beliefs. And so it creates, but it's considered a sect, a religious sect. It is. But
that's very cool.
That is my understanding. I could be completely wrong. Please, listeners, tell us if we are way off. But
I feel like that feels right.
That's what I think it is. Yeah.
But you know,
it's like, because people forget, like Caribbeans and Latin American and Black Americans didn't exist before the slave trade. Remember that.
Right.
So.
Yeah, fact. What do you mean? Well, just open a book.
It's all created out of the slave trade.
Yeah.
People forget that about Central and South America.
And I think it's actually really cool. I like that the original religions didn't die, right? And that that they were able to thrive despite the harshest of circumstances. So that's kind of cool. And she kind of, dove into that too. And she was awesome. So what this did was she was able to realistically portray themes like gender fluidity and cultural marginalization and domestic violence. Like we need her now. She experimented with body alteration in works where she changed the appearance of, or she manipulated the perception that she was female. And there's a lot, you guys could delve into what she did. It's very, very cool. So her work was somewhat autobiographical. So she drew from her history of being displaced from her native Cuba. So that was something she used her art her whole life to try to come to terms with. Her themes were feminism, violence, life, death, identity, place, and belonging. A lot of her work was ephemeral outdoor performances and photographs and sculptures and drawings. It says that her works were generally associated with the 4 classical elements. She focused on the spiritual and physical connection with the earth. She felt like by uniting her body with the earth, she could become whole again. Even just reading this is kind of very poetic. And she just, and if you think about how she kind of came to these terms and this knowledge in her, is just from her and her journey to come to terms with things.
I will say that the mention of blood, kind of grosses me out. But
I will say this, Lavetta, don't look at all of her work. That's what I will say.
Good to know.
But and think about in the 70s, she's very
70s were wild, man.
Yeah.
I think people forget. It was wild.
And they were, coming, I think pulling the veil off of people's eyes, right? Well, we had, the, oh my God, why can't I remember the 1964 Civil Rights Act? Thank you. Brain. Tired, need more coffee.
You're going to lose your ally card.
I'm about to, and that's totally fair. I apologize. But it was the 60s were about no, this bullshit has been going on and we need to stop. Yeah. And it got so heavy that we actually had laws. And then the 70s are okay, let's find our true humanity. Let's connect ourselves. And she dove in head
a bunch of
first.
Yeah. The 70s were that, and a bunch of also dropping acid,
yes,
mushrooms,
so many drugs.
smoking. The 70s were so wild, but also really fucking cool. A lot of great stuff. A lot of great cultural stuff came out of the 70s.
And super necessary. I think super necessary. So she says this about her body and the earth, quote, "Through my earth body sculptures, I become one with the earth. I become an extension of nature, and nature becomes an extension of my body. This obsessive act of reasserting my ties with the earth is really the reactivation of primeval beliefs in an omnipresent female force. The after image of being encompassing within the womb is a manifestation of my thirst for being." Cool, right?
Alrighty then.
I know.
Yeah.
Groovy is what I want to say about that.
Cool, man. Cool, dude. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Cool. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's cool. She produced over 200 works of art using earth as a sculptural medium. And her techniques were mainly influenced by Afro-Cuban traditions. So she, around this time, began a decades-long affair. We have a theme today, with her teacher, who was 13 years her senior. Mm-hmm. We have a theme today. So Hans Breeder influenced her in a lot of ways. I'm not going to go on about what he did because I don't care. But he did introduce her to a lot of people who would also be influential in her work as well. In the summer of 1971, she left Iowa to travel to Mexico for research. She was concerned with the painful remnants of her cultural displacement from Cuba. And in her, quote, she was, quote, going back to the source. Because she couldn't, I don't think she could actually go back to Cuba itself until 1980.
Exactly.
And this was how she carried out, quote, a dialogue between the landscape and the female body. So she used her body heavily as a representation of other bodies marginalized by race, violence, and gender. So she was sort of well ahead of her time and awareness at how all of this is kind of fluid. Everything we are here to do, race, and it's all fluid. She has a Silueta. I'm saying that so wrong, but Silueta series, Silueta, from 1973 to 1980, where she would imprint her body into the earth. She'd make silhouettes and then she'd paint it with like blood or found materials. Lavetta, you should probably not go look at this, but everyone else, it's cool.
Does it look like blood though? Does it?
Yeah.
Does it?
And some of the stuff she uses like doesn't look like, it isn't blood, but kind of looks like blood. Like she used, like, it's actually really cool. Like it's beautiful. I would say. Now, quick trigger warning. Because there was a bad thing that happened, not to her, but on campus. So I'm going to throw that out there to a woman, which was the beginning of her sort of mature stage of art, is how she sees it. There was a girl on campus at the University of Iowa campus who had been raped and murdered in 1973. And she created like a really powerful, complicated piece that like you could walk in and talk about this piece while people were actively in the room acting out the piece. But I'm not going to explain it any further because this is super dark.
It's basically just performative performance art.
Yes, like, it's performance art. And this was when she was like, I'm not fucking around. And she like, which was, I mean, very, very powerful. Yeah. So in 1980, she returned to Cuba for the first time since she had left as a child. And over the next few years, she was able to return on several occasions. She worked as a tour guide for the Cuban Cultural Center. Wow. And she also started writing poetry. Now, after she received her MFA from the University of Iowa, she moved to New York, where she met and befriended many female artists at the forefront of the feminist movement, such as Mary Beth Edelson, Nancy Sparrow, and Carolee Schneemann. Now, Mary Beth Edelson supported her to join and encouraged her to join the Artists in Residence Incorporated, which I didn't know this. It was the first gallery in the United States established solely for women. Now, right? I didn't know that was a thing. She met her future husband, who Carl Andre, who was a minimalist sculptor at that gallery. So after 2 years of active involvement in the AIR, she remarked, quote, you're going to like this one. Ready? American feminism as it stands is basically a white middle class movement.
No, really?
I know you didn't know that. So I'm just going to let you know now for the first time.
Okay.
Because what she was doing was more than feminism.
Right.
You know, this is not just one problem. This is a humanity problem. We need to come to terms with our humanity. I love her so much.
She's badass.
Yeah. And so, but she did in 1982, she left the AIR because she had made a piece with her boyfriend, later husband, and submitted to the gallery. And they denied it because it's supposed to be all female and he is male.
Okay.
Although, as I speak, I think there might have been more going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a year later, she moved to Rome as part of the prestigious American Academy residency. And she started making sculptures and drawings using natural elements. And she was awarded the Rome Prize in 1983. Now, during this time, her relationship with him was not doing great. But in January of 1985, they surprised everyone with news of a private wedding ceremony in Rome.
And this is with the boyfriend from?
Yeah.
Okay.
Carl Andre. So here's where it gets really, really sad. So a few months later, they were in New York and she died. She was 37 years old by tragically falling 33 floors from the window of the apartment she shared with Andre. And she fell onto the roof of a deli.
No.
And what's very messed up about it is that it was her body created an indent, right? And it was an awful echo of the work that she had been doing, right? That's fucked up. So, in a verdict that divided the art world, Andre was acquitted of committing second-degree murder, even though neighbors of them had heard a woman's screams of no, and he was seen with scratches on his face.
I mean, I was going to say, because I am a true crime person, is like, usually if you live in New York, you know, like, to be careful out on the balcony or I mean, it could be they could have been fighting and then it was an accident, or
I mean,
he was acquitted.
Here's what he was quoted as saying, that they had been arguing over the fact that he was becoming more successful than she was, and that fact depressed her enough to commit suicide.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So that
I don't know if I buy that, but
no, I don't. And a lot of people did not. And the fact that he got off is so terrible.
At 30 what did you say, 36?
37.
37, a woman who survived being pulled from her homeland and sent to fucking Iowa and away from her parents, like, it was so distraught that her boyfriend is getting more attention to her that she jumps.
Like, fuck you, man.
I don't know about that, dude. That sounds a bit suspicious, allegedly. As people like to say.
All right, allegedly. It's alleged. Super allegedly suspicious. Super keyword. So her friends and her artist circles were like, fuck off. She would never do that. And They said she was incapable of killing herself. And in the courtroom, and this is really fucked up, her artwork was used in court proceedings to back up the claim that her death had been a suicide. An action that her loved ones denounced, said her work was about life and power and energy and not about death. Like, you're asking a judge to interpret artwork? Oh my God.
Yeah. And also, I would imagine, like, this is where cultural, like, her foreignness is probably weaponized against her. Like,
yeah,
you know, like you saying, like, even though I'm like, I'm grossed out by blood, but like, once you said, oh, she practiced Santeria, like, she's from Cuba. I'm like, oh, okay. So it's interpretive. It's like, wow, she managed to create something so unique. And I bet sometimes beautiful, sometimes not. And that was the point. To create art. And I can see it and appreciate for what it is, but I would imagine people are like, oh, she's this foreign stuff. So she was just emotional, emotional Latina.
Yeah.
Yep. Like,
yep. Obviously, she just, you know how Latinas are. They jump out of windows.
And women in general.
And
women get hysterical bitches, right?
Yeah.
Women, these bitches be hysterical. It's like, okay.
Yeah. This could not be more obvious. And yet it's
this world-renowned.
Don't sue me.
World-renowned, successful artist just decides to kill herself at such a young age. Okay. All right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So this acquittal, it caused an uproar among feminists in the art world. It apparently remains controversial. In 2010, there was a symposium called Where is Ana Mendieta? And it was held at New York University to commemorate the 25th anniversary of her death. In May 2014, the feminist protest group No Wave Performance Task Force staged a protest in front of the Dia Arts Foundation, which was a retrospective on Carl Andre. The group deposited piles of animal blood and guts in front of the establishment, with protesters donning transparent tracksuits with "I wish Ana Mendieta was still alive" written on them.
Damn.
So they're still fighting. Yeah, they are. I mean, this was 1985. Wow. And she has influenced many modern artists.
Oh yeah, I bet.
She's actually very, very big in the art world. I'm just ignorant of much of the art world.
Yeah, me too.
That is her, Ana Mendieta.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing. And also, like, is there a true crime story about her? I'm sure there's. Because that just sounds suspicious as fuck. I'm just saying.
I'm like wondering where this miniseries is. You know what I'm saying? Because also, let's like watch her create her art. Because it's like, it's really cool. Like it's not stuff. And as someone who like, I'm in fitness and stuff and I work with bodies. So it's really cool to see what she does like in the human form. Like I really appreciated it. And I'd never heard of her before.
Okay. So, I'll check some of it out, even if it's got blood in it.
Girl, not all of it, but some of it.
Ana Mendieta?
Yes, Mendieta.
And Ana Mendieta. Mendieta. Mendieta.
Sí,
okay,
señora.
Yeah, I'm just...
Senora. Oh, God. All right.
Excuse you. It's C, senorita. Okay.
I apologize.
Yeah.
Is one like married and one not? I didn't know.
Yeah. Senorita.
Senorita.
No, that's...
Okay. Sorry.
No, that's amazing. Ana Mendieta. Oh, thank you so much for sharing her story. And I mean, it's fascinating. And listeners, tell us if we've missed something, if there is like a story out there, like a true crime series or something about her life and mysterious death or I guess it's not so mysterious, but because it did go to court, but fascinating. Thank you so much. What a way to kick off our season 2. episode 1 of Notorious Women podcast. Guys, as always, thank you for joining us. Please remember to like us on all the things, to share us with your friends and family. Like I always like to say, just copy the link to the episodes and send it to them via text or email.
Yep.
Because if you just tell people about it, they'll be like, oh, that sounds really cool. And then they'll forget when they want to listen to something. So, but thank you as always for listening to us. Thank you for helping us to get through season 1. We appreciate all the love and support. Again, if you want to support us on Patreon, please feel free to go to patreon.com/notoriouswomen. That's patreon.com/notoriouswomen. Subscribe, like, and leave a comment. 5 stars. Leave a 5-star comment.
5-star. And if you can't leave a comment, but I feel like you can, but if you can't, just click the 5 stars in your thing. It's real easy. Just point and click. I mean, even I can do that. And I'm the worst technology person you'll ever meet.
Absolutely. We appreciate it because it helps people find us in the iTunes store, on Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcast. So, and then Miriam's going to tell you where you can find us on IG and email.
That's right. So IG is so easy. It's Notorious Women Podcast. Come join us. Welcome. It's fun. I have fun with it. And then Gmail we have is notoriouswmpod@gmail.com. If that's too complicated, you can also follow us on Insta and DM, and we will see that as well. So
yes,
both work. But if you have long things to say, please feel free to email.
Yes, and forgive us if it takes us a little time to respond to comments or messages. We are a little slow in the uptake.
Yep, but we're learning and we're growing as people, and that's what's important.
Exactly. I mean, we're nerds, but we're not tech nerds. So.
No, very different kind of nerds.
Yeah, we're hobbits and dragons and musical theater nerds. That's what we are. Mm-hmm. So, all right, guys, that wraps it up. We will see you guys next week. Thank you. Bye-bye.